Hello and welcome to the next edition of the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Voice of the Customer podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on digital transformation. Stay with us now to learn how agile businesses are fending off disruption in favor of innovation. Our next case study highlights how UK IT consultancy OCSL is setting its sights on the holy grail of hybrid IT by helping its clients define and attain the right mix of hybrid cloud. We'll now explore how each enterprise, and perhaps even units within each enterprise, are determining the path to a proper mix of public and private cloud. And, closer to home, they're looking at the proper fit of converged infrastructure, hyper-converged infrastructure, and software-defined data center platforms. Implementing such a services-attuned architecture may be the best viable means to dynamically apportion applications and data support among and between cloud and on-premises deployments. Here to describe how to rationalize the right mix of hybrid cloud and hybrid IT services, along with infrastructure choices on premises, please join me in welcoming our guest. We're here with Mark Skelton, Head of Consultancy at OCSL in London. Thanks for being here, Mark.
Hi, Dana. It's great to be here this morning.
Now, we've just introduced a very large topic, the whole idea of what's the right mix. People seem to be in agreement that, sure, I want to have on-premises, yes, I want cloud, and some continuum between them. But deciding the right mix is difficult and probably something that's going to change over time. What are you seeing now as sort of the trends that are helping organizations make this determination? Is it economics? Is it technology? Is it an unknown?
Well, I think it's a blend of a lot of things, really. So we've been working with clients for a long time on their hybrid and cloud messaging. And I think our clients have really been struggling just to understand what hybrid really means, but also how we make hybrid a reality, and how they get started, because it's a minefield. You know, you look at what Microsoft are doing, AWS are doing, and what Hewlett-Packard are doing in their technologies, and there's so much out there, and how do they really get started? And I think we've been struggling in the last 18 months to really get customers on that journey and get started. But I think now, because technology is advancing, we're starting to see customers starting to embrace it, starting to evolve and transform into those things. And we've matured our models and frameworks as well to help customer adoption.
Do you see the rationale for hybrid IT shaking down to an economic equation? Is it to try to take advantage of technologies that are available? Is it about compliance and security? You're probably tempted to say all of the above, but I'm looking for what's perhaps most driving a top-of-mind decision-making now.
I think the initial decision-making process starts with the economics. So I think everyone has been bought into the marketing messages from the public cloud providers and saying, we can reduce your costs, we can reduce your overheads, and not just from a cost perspective, but actually from management, from personnel perspective, from technology solutions perspective. So I think CIOs and even financial officers are seeing that economic side of things as like the tipping point, right? We need to go into a hybrid cloud or even all into a public cloud. But I think once you get it beyond that, because it's not always cheaper to put everything into public cloud, I think we look at, when we do look at business cases and things like that with clients, it's a long-term investment we look at, and actually over the time, it's not always cheaper to put into public cloud, and that's where hybrid then starts to come back into the forefront of people's minds. Mm-hmm. So we can use public cloud for the right workloads, where they want to be flexible and burst and be a bit more agile, or even give global reach to non-global businesses, but then keep the crown jewels back in secure data centers where they know and trust it, and closer to some of their key critical systems, I guess. So yeah, it starts with the finance side of things, but I think quickly evolves beyond that. Financial decisions are not the only reason why people are going to public or even hybrid cloud.
Right. So. And I suppose in a more perfect world, we'd be able to move things back and forth with a bit of ease and simplicity, where we could test, maybe an A/B testing type of approach to a public and private cloud. We're not quite there yet, but do you see a day where that choice about public and private will be dynamic and perhaps among multiple clouds, so a multi-cloud hybrid environment?
Absolutely. I think multi-cloud is the nirvana for every organization, just because there's not one size fits all for every type of workload that you're trying to run as a business. I think we've been talking about it for quite a long time. I think technology hasn't really been there to underpin multi-cloud and truly make it easy to move, let's say, on-prem to public or vice versa. But I think now we're getting there with technology. Are we there yet? No, I think there's still a few big releases coming. So Azure Stack being one of the things that we're waiting to be released to market, which will help simplify that multi-cloud and the ability to migrate up and back. But we're not quite there yet, in my opinion.
And we might be tempted to break this out between applications and data. Application workloads might be a bit more flexible across a continuum of hybrid cloud, but other considerations are brought to the data. That can be security, regulation, control, compliance, data sovereignty, GDPR, and so forth. Are you seeing your customers looking at this divide between applications and data, and how are they able to rationalize one versus the other?
Yeah, I think applications, like you just mentioned, I think they're the simpler things to move into a cloud model, but the data is really the crown jewels of a business, and actually I think people are nervous about putting that into public cloud. So what we're seeing a lot of is actually, can we put applications up into the public cloud for the agility and elasticity and global reach, like I mentioned before, but it's really trying to keep data still on premise. So because they're nervous about those breaches in a service provider's data center, I would say. So that's what we're seeing. But we're seeing an uprise in things like object storage. So we're working with Scality, for example. And they've got a really neat solution for blending public and on-prem solutions. So we can pin things to certain platforms in a secure data center, and then where the data is not quite so critical, move it into a public cloud environment.
Well, it sounds like you've been quite busy. Why don't you please tell us a little bit more about OCSL for our listeners and readers that might not be that familiar. Give us a overview of your company and perhaps where you're focusing most of your efforts in terms of hybrid computing.
So OCSL's been around for about 26 years as a business, been reselling hardware for a lot of those years. But I think recently we've been through a rebrand and a refresh of actually what we're focusing on. And we're moving more to a services organisation, service-led organisation, leading with our people and our consultants. And what we're really focusing on is transforming customers, clients into the cloud environment. Whether that's applications, whether it's data center cloud, whether it's hybrid cloud, really trying to get customers on that journey of transformation and engaging with business level people, so business requirements, and working out actually how we make cloud a reality, rather than just going, there's a product and you go do whatever you want with it. Actually finding out what those businesses want, first of all, what the key requirements are, and then finding the right cloud models to fit that.
Yes, so many organizations are facing not just a retrofit or a rethinking around IT, but truly a digital transformation for the entire organization. In many cases, sloughing off business lines, in other cases, acquiring. It's an interesting time in terms of a mass reconfiguration of businesses and how they identify themselves. Yeah,
absolutely. I think what's different, what's changed for me is, when I go and speak to a customer, I'm no longer just speaking to the IT guys. I'm actually engaging with the finance officers, the marketing officers, the digital officers, the common one that's creeping up now. And it's a very different conversation. We're looking at business outcomes now, rather than focusing on, I need this disk or this product. It's actually, I need to deliver this service back to the business. And that's how we're changing as a business, doing that business consultancy, engaging with that, and then trying to find the right solutions to fit those requirements effectively and truly transform their business.
And, of course, HPE has been going through some transformations itself for the past several years, and that doesn't seem to be slowing up any much. Tell us a little bit about the alliance between OCSL and HPE. How do you come together as a whole greater than the sum of the parts?
So yeah, the HPE, yes, is transforming, and I think they're trying to become a more agile organisation with some of the spin-offs that we've had recently, just aiding that agility. And I think OCSL works in partnership with HPE for many, many years, and it's all about going to market together and working together to engage with the customers at the right level and find the right solutions. And we've had great success with that over the many years that we've been in partnership together.
Great. Now, let's go to the show rather than tell part of our discussion. Are there some examples that you can look to, clients that you work with that have progressed through a transition to hybrid computing, hybrid cloud, and enjoyed certain benefits, or maybe found some unintended consequences that we could learn from?
So we've had a lot of success, I would say, in the last 12 months of taking clients on the journey to hybrid cloud. One of the key ones that resonates with me is as a legal firm that we've been working with, and they were in a bit of a state. They had an infrastructure that was aging, was unstable, and was not delivering quality service back to the lawyers that were trying to embrace technology. So mobile devices, dictation, software, those kind of things. And what we came in was with a fresh perspective on actually how they should address some of those problems. And we came in and challenged them and said, we could need to go through a stabilization phase. Public cloud is not going to be the immediate answer. So they were being courted by the big vendors, as everyone is, about public cloud, and they were saying it was the nirvana for them. We came in and we challenged that, and actually we got them to a stable platform first, built on HPE hardware. Actually in OCSL's managed services data center, got instant stability for them. So the business saw immediate return and delivery of service. So it's all about getting that impactful thing back to the business first and foremost. And what we're working through now is actually each of their service lines, working out how we can break them up, transform them into a cloud model. So breaking down those apps, deconstructing the apps, and thinking about how we can use pockets of public cloud in line with the hybrid on-premise in our data center infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And so they're now starting to see real innovative solutions taking their business forward, but they got that instant stability.
Any situations where organizations were very high-minded and fanciful about what they were going to get from cloud that may have led to some disappointment? So unintended consequences. You don't have to name them, of course, but what others might benefit from in hindsight. What do you look out for now that you've been doing this for a while in terms of hybrid cloud adoption? So
I think one of the things I've seen a lot of with cloud is that people have bought into the messaging from the big public cloud vendors about how they can just turn on services and keep consuming. And I think a lot of people have got themselves into a state where bills have been rising, and the economics are just, quite frankly, looking a bit ridiculous. And the finance officers are now coming back saying, we need to rein that back in. How do we put some control around that? And that's where hybrid is actually really helping, because we can start to hook up some workloads on back in an isolated data center, start to move some of those workloads back. But key for me is it comes down to putting some thought process into what you're putting into cloud. Just don't throw it all, but actually how can you transform and use the services properly? Not, people just turn everything on because it's there and it's a click of a button away, but actually think about, put some design and planning into adopting cloud.
It also sounds like the IT people might need to go out and have a pint with the procurement people and learn a few basics about good contract writing, terms and conditions, putting in clauses that allow you to back out if needed. Is that something that we should be mindful of IT being in the procurement mode as well as specifying technology mode? Yeah,
and I think procurement are definitely involved in the initial setup of cloud, whether they're committing to a consumption number, but then once that's done, it's IT's responsibility in terms of what they're consuming that, or how they're consuming that, I should say. And it's I think procurement needs to be involved all the way through and keeping constant track of actually what's going on, and that's not happening. The IT guys, they don't really care about the cost. They care about the widgets and turning things on and making, and playing around in there. They don't really realise how much it's going to cost back. So, I think there's a bit of disjointed in lots of organisations in terms of procurement do the upfront piece and then it goes away, and then IT come in and spend all the money.
But with a service delivery, complex service delivery environment, that procurement function probably should be constant and vigilant.
Yeah, and I think procurement departments are going to change. I think we're starting to see that in some of the bigger organisations. They're closer to the IT departments. They need to understand their technology and actually what's being used. But that's quite rare at the moment, and I think that's probably going to be a big, over the next 12 months, that's going to be a big change in the larger organisations.
All right, Mark, before we close out, maybe a look to the future. A year or two from now, if we sit down again, I imagine that more microservices will be involved. Containerization will have an effect where the complexity of services and what we even think of as an application could be quite different, more of an API-driven environment perhaps. So the complexity about managing on an ongoing basis your cloud and hybrid cloud divide, the right mix, and then pricing that and being vigilant about whether you're getting your money's worth or not, seems to me something that we should start thinking about applying artificial intelligence, machine learning, what I like to call ops bots, something that is going to be there for you automatically without human intervention. Does that sound on track to you? And do you think that we need to start looking to advanced automation and even artificial intelligence-driven automation to manage this complex divide between organizations and cloud providers?
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of key points there in terms of where the future's going. I think we're still in this phase of trying to build the right platforms to be ready for the future. So we see the releases of Synergy, for example, being able to support old and new. And that's really allowing us to then embrace things like microservices, Docker being one of the key things in there, Mesosphere. These upstart disruptive organizations with great technology, but we need to get that platform first. So hopefully in 12 months we're going to have those platforms. We can then start to embrace some of this new great technology, really rethink our applications. And it's a challenge to the ISVs. They've got to work out how they can take advantage of some of these technologies. We're seeing a lot of talk about serverless and computing, so where there's nothing running and you only spin up resources as and when you need to. And the classic use case for that out there is Uber. They built their whole business on that serverless type model. So I think in 12 months' time we're going to see a lot more of that in more of the enterprise type organizations. I don't think we've got it quite clear in our minds how we're going to embrace that, but it's the ISV community that really needs to start driving that. And then beyond that, yes, absolutely, AI, bots, in a scary world where we're going to all go and you're going to be talking to computers and they're going to be responding with very human sort of reactions and things. I think that is the next wave, and bringing that into enterprise organizations, that actually how we can solve some business challenges, whether it's better service desk management is one of the use cases we're seeing in some of our clients, whether they can get immediate response from bots and things like that to common queries, so they don't need as many support analysts, and those kind of trends are already starting to happen.
Yes, very exciting time. All right, well, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been exploring how UK IT consultancy OCSL is setting its sights on the holy grail of hybrid IT by helping its clients define and attain the right mix of hybrid cloud. And we've learned how each enterprise, perhaps even down to the unit level within that enterprise, is starting to determine the proper mix of public and private use, as well as the right types of converged and hyper-converged and software-defined infrastructures within their own data centers. So please join me in thanking our guest as we've parsed through this and looked to the future as well. We've been here with Mark Skelton, Head of Consultancy at OCSL in London. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Dana.
And thank you as well to our audience for joining us for this Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Voice of the Customer Digital Transformation discussion. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of HPE-sponsored interviews. Thanks again for listening, and do please come back next time.